I'll see you guys in the dark.
To begin, this started when I was 14. I'm female, and now I'm 21. I just transferred to a new high school in the middle of the school year as a freshman with my twin sister. I was enrolled into a Spanish 2 class where I met Tony, and that was where the obsession began. But when I started my class and met Tony, I instantly thought that he was attractive. He was tall, brown hair, and beautiful eyes for a guy, and was also a year my senior. But I did not notice he was extremely shy and kind of awkward, but I made up excuses to talk to him, asking him about the homework and other meaningless small talk. He took to me and asked if I wanted to walk around during lunch and talk. I happily agreed to this. He was obviously not very confident and didn't know how to initiate a conversation, so I did most of the talking. Even went as far as to asking him for his phone number. After a few days of texting and talking, I can tell he doesn't have any friends, and he is kind of negative and has a pessimistic view towards life. It was rather draining and disappointing. Things he would say were kind of unsettling, or I guess just unusual for me. He would text me fantasizing about being a superhero, kind of like role-playing, in which I was the damsel in distress, and he was my savior, and text me somewhat similar to those choose-your-own-adventure, always ending in the damsel and the hero kissing and being together. He had an obsession with Slasher from the Scream movies. Overall, he was a nice guy, but different from what I was expecting or attracted to. Time passes. Valentine's Day is coming up. We're talking practically every day, so he asked me to be his Valentine. I agree, somewhat reluctantly. So it's Valentine's Day. He walks up to me and gives me a pack of Hershey's Kisses and some Twizzlers. I don't really like Twizzlers, so I handed them back to him and gave him a kiss on the cheek and went to my class. Yes, I know that was kind of a bitch move, but was honestly losing interest in him at that point, and I told him before I didn't like red vines or any candy like that. During the day, I received more gifts, flowers and candies from others, like my friends, and I see Tony, and I can tell he's extremely upset by this, but he doesn't say anything to me. He texts me later in the day saying how stupid he felt and how he is outdone by everyone else. I didn't respond to this. Over the next few weeks, I gradually talk to him less and less. Class is awkward, and I can tell he wants to say something to me, but he never does. I later learned from my twin sister that he asks her every single day about me. If I'm talking to someone else, if I like him, how to win me over, confiding in her that he has never talked to a girl before. And at first, I think it's sweet, but I still no longer had a romantic interest in him. We would talk at school sometimes. He would bring me homemade cookies, walk me to the train station. Still tries to text and call me in the evenings after school. But I was talking to someone new who eventually became my boyfriend for the rest of high school. His name is Brandon. When I started dating Brandon, I knew that Tony was absolutely devastated. He then started telling people around school that I was his first kiss. I was confused because I didn't know a kiss on the cheek counted as a first kiss. But to each their own, I guess. It was somewhat upsetting because people were getting the impression that we dated, or that I played him, which was not the case at all. I could still talk to Tony as a friend. He was in the same grade and classes as my new boyfriend, and he would always tell me how he thought Brandon didn't like him, and that he felt like Brandon knew about us. I told Tony there was nothing to know. We weren't anything but friends, and Brandon was totally chill, non-confrontational, the stoner type, not in his nature to stir up drama over nothing, and definitely not the jealous type. The school year was coming to an end, and Tony comes running up to me after the last day of school and hands me this, I shit you not, 60 or 70 page notebook, wide-ruled, if it makes a difference, explaining all the ways he's in love with me, and how everybody at the school thinks poorly of me. and how he treats me better, blah blah blah. I read it once, show my twin, and she tells me how weird and uncomfortable it makes her. We both agree on that. I stash it away and don't speak of it to anybody. I act like nothing happened, and I still talk to him as a friend occasionally. I worked a lot in high school in my free time, and spent a lot of time with my boyfriend and friends, and didn't think much about Tony at all. Time goes on. We eventually stop talking. I see him around school, and he never really is with anybody else. He's usually alone, which I don't find strange anymore, considering how awkward and quiet he can be. Fast forward another year. I'm a junior. Tony and Brandon are both seniors, getting ready to graduate. Tony texts me out of the blue one day and tells me he has a written story, and it would mean the world to him if I would be the first to read it and give him feedbacks. And being the person I am, I agree. So he comes up to me at school the next day and hands me this fat notebook and tells me to take my time reading it and to give him honest feedback when I was finished. I read the story in 4-class period. It was around 300 pages long. Anyways, the story takes place in a Game of Thrones era type setting. The 3 main characters are Eric, who is Tony, Alva, which is me, and Isaac, which is Brandon, for the sake of the confusion. I'll be referring to the characters by our names. The only reason I know the characters were us and not fictional was simply by the way he had described them, literally identical to our physical appearances. To continue, Tony was the son of the king or whatever, the rest of us mere peasants. But Tony was always in love with me, but I was with Brandon. It was the annual time where our kingdom would go to battle with another for honor and glory, gladiator style. Tony thought it would be a wonderful time to prove himself, and volunteered. The night before our kingdom traveled to where the battle would take place, my character went to Tony in the middle of the night to express her love and fear, and they ended up having very graphic sex. It was truly disturbing. The next day, after they had arrived at the place of battle, my character went to his room again, where the same graphic encounter occurred again. And during, Brandon came looking for my character, in which we were caught. My character told Tony I didn't really love him, and ran after Brandon to apologize for being a harlot. Tony was devastated, and ultimately let his opponent kill him in battle because he couldn't handle the loss of the love of his life. Our kingdom goes back home, and in the middle of the night, Brandon sneaks through the window and murders me. He slits my throat. The end. As you can imagine, I was absolutely horrified and creeped out. I threw the book away and never told Tony what I thought about it. He must have known, because I never asked for it back. Tony and Brandon both graduate. Life goes on. Tony didn't try to reach out to me for a few years, until I was around 20. He messaged me on Instagram in the middle of the night. Show me your feet. Submit to daddy. I always looked at your feet at school and would fantasize about them, along with links to a few foot fetish websites. I promptly blocked him. The next day, he messaged me on another account, a foot fetish and bondage account he ran. He asked me why I blocked him. I just blocked him again. Earlier last year on my new account, he messaged me basically calling me a whore, and how he wishes that I would die, and how he hated everyone we went to school with, and hoped they would all die too. And how he fantasized on how he would kill me for all the pain that I caused him. I was genuinely afraid, but I didn't know how to handle the situation. Was it really a death threat? I don't know. I later learned that he worked at a diner down the street from my apartment. I avoided it at all costs. I've since moved, and I haven't heard from Tony since. But multiple girls I went to high school with told me he was obsessed with me, and would constantly talk about me to them, and how he would message them the same disgusting things while he was on a drunken stupor. Anyways, Tony, let's not meet ever again. About 2 years ago, I was going shopping for a Valentine's Day gift for my girlfriend, since I thought it would be a nice gesture. The walk to the store from where I live is about 5 to a 10-minute walk. It was around 8 p.m., so I just wanted to get home. I was walking in the road because there was next to no cars going down the road, and I didn't feel like going through the park. I was approaching the park when I realized I was being followed. I thought nothing of it at first, so I just got walking. He then got closer and closer. When I was walking past, I hear, "Hey, kid." I was shocked, but I wanted to ignore him, so I just kept walking. When he said it again, but a bit more violently. So I turned around, and this guy wasn't a pissing distance from me. I'm 6'1", and this man just a bit taller than me. He then tried to set up a conversation like, "How was your night?" I felt a bit relieved, and kind of thought poorly of myself for judging him so soon. I was right to assume it, though. He then tries to keep a conversation going, and then proceeds to ask, "Where are you going?" I just said, "The store." He then walked up to a car. He then said, "I can give you a ride." I told him, "No thank you, I can walk from here." But he kept asking the same question. And then he said, "What about car surfing?" He then tried to show me what it was. I still declined. This guy was really creeping me out. I was still walking down the road while this was happening. He still followed me, and thankfully, I was reaching the store, and he left me alone. For now. I then got the candy heart chocolate box, and a teddy bear. I was walking back home when I saw the guy again. The weird part was the following from the other side. I feel like he waited for me, just to come walking by again. This was starting to scare me a bit. He then yelled, "Hey!" I was getting pretty scared at the moment. I then turned around. This guy was like 6'5" and weighed a lot more than me. Being hesitant, I turned around. Now this guy was starting to jog this way over to me. And then I noticed something off. The car was gone, meaning this guy either walked here or he wasn't alone. I acted oblivious, like I didn't know the car was gone. He tried starting another conversation. I was really uncomfortable the first time, so I just said, "I really need to get back," and I started walking a bit faster to the fastest way home, which is through an alley. When I was going through, he was gone, and I was thankful. But when I was walking down the alley, I don't know what it was, but I saw the same car he was claiming to be his. When I went home, I wanted to know more about this guy. I looked online for something about him, and there was nothing. I wanted to know about the car. I didn't believe for a second that it was his, so I looked it up, and it was reported as stolen. I didn't think much of it, but reported it just in case. I wasn't sure if they found it, or even found the guy in general. I hope I never have to deal with this dude ever again. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.